Welcome back to Center Stage with ICS Theatre. As we continue our series of conversations with ICS and ICST's very own people, celebrating 10 years of ICS Theatre. These lovely folks are the backbone and the lifelines of the organization, without whose constant and unwavering support ICS and ICST would not be where it is today. Please join me in extending a warm welcome to Dr. Jayanti Ingle, Dr. Nandita Varma, Jaya Bhangwani, and Dr. Naren Kishnani. Welcome to Center Stage with ICS Theatre.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for having us.
Hi, welcome everyone. Great. Now that we have everyone here. So in our previous chat that we had with the founders of ICS, we learned a lot about the origin of the organization, its early days. And now I want to take the story further to a time when the organization became a more formal entity and you all took on the mantle of becoming the trustees. So could you tell us about how this started, the making of the trustees, the formalization of this organization, and how this all happened?
Okay, I'm going to defer it to Nandita because I know we started it as a formal organization trying to write the bylaws, and I think she was most critical in writing the bylaws for ICS, and then the theater started at the later stage, which was, of course, supported by all of us.
Right. So I think we like to think about ICS as being the parent organization and ICS Theatre as being a very important offshoot. And when ICS was formalized, we wrote the bylaws, as Jayu mentioned. And that part of the bylaws is that, it includes 3 trustees, and the trustees have, some kind of governance role. We're not involved in the day-to-day mechanics or operations of either ICS or ICST. But, we are available, for brainstorming and sort of thinking about the future of both ICS and ICST. And we are not the first generation of ICS trustees. We kind of assumed roles as the founding trustees rolled off. I'll stop there.
Jaya, would you like to add something?
Yeah, so each one of us joined when one of the founding trustees, rolled off, and our role is really a broader role, with strategic planning, focus on broader issues, troubleshooting as needed when there are emerging issues that come up. We also run the general body meeting each year for the ICS elections. Last year we did take on this major task of updating our bylaws and formalizing ICST and adding them to the bylaws, because ICST was nowhere in our bylaws when ICS was at the inception. So now ICST is formally part of ICS. So that's a great milestone.
Yes, it is.
And just on that point, I'll mention that, ICS started as an idea, and initially we called it an experiment. And then it went on for 10 years, and that's a little too long for an experiment. And then, we knew that piece of, the organization was here to stay and needed to be, formally incorporated into the bylaws.
Great. So I know Jaya covered some of this, but what are some of the goals really that the trustees work towards over the years? How have they changed? Like what are some of the things that you guys have worked on that you wish to achieve?
when I was a trustee, I would say just increasing more of the community activity as we did. And so the theater, there was so much passion in the team to start the theater. So that was really one of the major endeavors that they did. And so that became kind of our goal. We had other little activities that were going on with ICS, but I think during my tenure and a little after, I think ICS Theatre was the big emerging activity.
Yeah, and we've made changes also based on the needs of the organization. Like where there was a time when our community activities, our calendar was so full. There were so many events that the committee that was there, it was a committee of 14, 4 execs and committee members, was not sufficient to manage the number of activities. So we had a request to expand the committee, and we did change the bylaws to expand the committee. And interestingly enough, when we expanded the committee, we had a whole lot of new committees and no one to take on the role of a president during that transitional year. So I did come back as a president that year. So we've played, we've taken on multiple roles to keep the organization strong and growing.
Right.
I think a testament to the support that ICS provided to ICST was the fact that for them to apply for grants, you needed
Yes.
a non-profit organization status, 501c3. I hope I said it correctly. It's
Correctly,
501.
Yes, you did.
So that showed the commitment that the ICS had for ICST in terms of support.
Yeah.
And that was a very major accomplishment for the ICST.
Great.
That certainly was, because I remember we had applied for it earlier and a couple of times we really didn't get through. So
Yeah.
eventually,
Okay.
yeah, the committee then came through and we had people who were really able to help us come through with getting that 503 status. So yeah, that was a journey in itself.
Yes.
That's great. So ICS T, of course, was kind of like a branch or an offshoot of ICS. But what was the initial like the starter for ICST to come about? Any stories from that time?
I think Tartuffe was the game changer, if I remember correctly. That was the first play that really was so well received. It received great acclaim. The actors, the director, everything, the whole entire production was so well received, and that I think was like the trajectory for ICST to take off. And their body of work is just amazing over the years.
The rest is history, as we know.
Rest is for sure.
Now, at one point, of course, we all know we were all hit by COVID. The world came to a standstill. And yet ICST, of course, found new and innovative ways to spread their wings, to connect with people worldwide, and just actually multiply their exposure and their reach to people, not just in East Brunswick or in New Jersey, but even far and wide. Are there any stories you would like to share from those days? What happened around that time, like right around COVID, before COVID, after COVID, something like that?
Just share one, because I think it's interesting when you think about COVID. Most organizations, whether it's the business sector, nonprofits, all organizations got hit and had to think hard about sustainability and survival, and how best to adapt to the current context. And I think ICS's journey during that 3-year period is also a reflection of a lot of flexibility and innovation and creativity. But I do remember very clearly, I think it was like February or March of 2020, when it wasn't quite clear what this thing was, but alarms were beginning to sound. There was a practice that was happening in my house, and I forget what the play was. But then the team came together and decided that, in the interest of public health and safety, that they should stop meeting and practicing. And I just remember everybody literally clearing out of my house and making sure that they left the place clean for, very clean, but, they were just like sanitizing the place, and they came armed with a lot of Clorox, and, but, that was also a turning point for ICST and to figure out where to go next. So I'm not sure I'll forget that story.
That's a very interesting story.
And actually, on that note, all of us trustees have had a role in hosting ICST rehearsals. Initially, it was my basement that was being used for rehearsals and also for storage space. So I had like an ICS corner in my basement where all the props were stored. And then when I was moving out of that house, they had to move their stuff, and they transitioned to using Nandita's basement for rehearsals, and now Jayu.
My driveway was the big thing. Practicing under the stars, I understand, because it was a flat place. But it's very interesting that for me, theater has always been a spectator sport. I'm always watched. I never went on stage. And to see so many people within our ICS community that were so passionate about theater, and how, you've really helped those people find their own passion, find their own talent, and come up there. So the COVID really, I thought things will kind of fold at that time, but it just showed how you were very tenacious about continuing the work. And, so naturally, it is us, I'm sure the trustees are like very supportive, because that's what it's all about.
Absolutely. I mean, just the fact that you guys opened up your doors to so many ICST practices, that just speaks volumes of your support. Nothing more, is more appreciated, really, because space is so critical, and the consistency of having that space for ICST to have their rehearsals, because so many of these practices would not be possible without your support. Anybody wants to share any fun stories or anecdotes of your journey as trustees with ICS or with
I have to say
ICST?
one more thing.
Yes,
Sorry to
sure.
interrupt about ICS Theatre practicing
Sure.
in the house.
Sure.
I lucked out because I got some very good meals from them. They bring food, they'd cook, it was hot and yummy, and I got to eat some, so hey, there was a lot of give back in that way also.
Yeah, I second that. When they were using my house, I used to come home to folks that had my kitchen was open to them, and they either ate the food I cooked or cooked for me, and I got fed. It was all good.
It was all good.
Yeah. The other criteria that comes to mind, maybe a requirement later on for the trustees, is that they have to have a big enough house to be used, or the basement should be big enough for the rehearsals, and food.
And food.
Yeah, that's great.
Sounds good.
Any last message from any of you to the future generation of ICS and ICS team?
So just staying true and focused on the spirit of community. I mean, this started with giving, community a platform for experimental theater. Not everybody's going to be on Broadway, but, you can come pretty close. I look at the way, our performances are. And so just, being open to the membership and to anybody who's just interested in any role. I think that is just so central to the mission of ICST and ICS itself.
I totally agree with Nandita. I think, we've had such big names be a part of the theater with your directors and, globally known, really, people. But it's also very important that you nurture the young, and I think you're seeing young people want to participate, may not have tried it before, and now find out that they're that might be something that they like to do. So I would say continue, nurture, and help people grow.
And I have to say that I'm really proud of how ICST has expanded and is so inclusive, because initially in the first 2 years, it was a small group that kind of rotated as the cast. And then I think COVID, and even a little bit pre-COVID, the way the plays are announced and auditions are held is a very fair and inclusive process, and it's really great to see how many folks have have used ICS as a platform and have really grown as actors and directors. It's really awesome, and I just wish that they would continue that journey in that direction with diversity and inclusion.
And the thing about the directors, I think we should thank the directors for giving continuous support to ICST by agreeing to or wanting to, to direct plays every year. So Dr. Farley, Richmond, and Mahesh Dattani in particular are well sought after, highly regarded, and they themselves want to be a part of the ICST. That speaks volumes about the ICST organization.
True.
That's great. So a big thank you to all of you for spending this time with us today, reminiscing, going down memory lane, so that we can have this recording. It's almost like a time capsule for future. Thank you again for everything that you have done. And you continue to keep doing for ICS and for ICSD. And we look forward to growth, relevancy, success for both ICS and ICS Theatre for many more years to come. So thank you so much.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you.